New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Good afternoon. I'm Reverend Barbara Schreiner-Trudell, affectionately called Rev B. Welcome to the Joy Show with Rev B on the New Thought Media Network. Joy is an acronym for Just One You, and I believe the path to joy comes from accepting ourselves and living a truly authentic life. So as we begin, I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement, and I acknowledge that the land we're meeting on, Turtle Island, is the traditional territory home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. And I'm grateful to be able to live, work, and play here. I seek to always uncover the truth and to ensure that Indigenous ways of knowing, being, and doing continue. Today, I honor all Indigenous peoples, for we are one. So the Joy Show reflects the power of living authentically, and each of my guests comes in to share their little piece of understanding of the world and life and how they have created a remarkable existence by honoring their own divine nature. So I am super excited today to have with me the founder of the New Thought Media Network. Rev Robert Brzezinski holds a master's in consciousness studies, is an ordained minister of religious science, and considers himself a multi-passionate entrepreneur. His lifelong quest for truth has led through various philosophies and communities, and he finds himself as at a unique crossroads of spirituality and social experience. So I am delighted and excited. Please help me to welcome Reverend Robert, or Rev. So grateful you could join me today. This is a whole new experience to tell me this. Whatever was the initial thought for this New Thought Media Network? Because this is brilliant. I like it.
Oh, well, I'm glad it's an hour show because it could take the whole segment just to answer that one question. But thanks for having me here, Rev B. It's really fun to get to sit in and share some of the answers to these questions. I want you to know we feel incredibly blessed with your participation here on the network, and as you continue to find your way into the places and where it's yours to play here and where it's yours to show up. It's really, really fun getting to know you and getting to work with you a bit more. And so, all right, you want to get into it. You want to go right into the heart of it, right from the beginning. The short answer is the visioning practice.
Right. I love that.
And in late 2018 to early 2019, somewhere along the line, I've always had the passion for internet radio. And I've watched a number of internet radio stations come and go within the New Thought movement. And something late one night playing around on the internet landed on the Live 365 platform, which I had known about many years previous, but had disbanded and gone away. Here it was, it had come back in a new form, and it allowed us to be in integrity with the artists that we play through their system, Live 365, through their system of royalty payments and making sure that artists are getting compensated when we play their music on our internet radio station. And really, it was just a little hobby of mine for me and some friends, so that I always had a New Thought playlist at hand. And my wife has always really enjoyed the playlists I put together, so she loves, and it was really a small little thing for a group of people. It was the seed of an idea.
Wow.
And in early 2020, January to be precise, so before the world knew what we were about to experience, my original New Thought teacher put me on a 30-day vision quest.
Who was your teacher?
Reverend Donald Graves.
Okay, yes.
And Reverend Donald and I had a great mentor-mentee relationship, and eventually grew that into colleagues as both ministers. And he had been listening to me, and I talked to him right after the holiday. He said, okay, here's the deal. You got to do 30 days of visioning, and I don't want to talk to you again until you're done.
I love that. I love that. That's perfect.
Yeah. All right. I get it. I'm with you. And I did. And for 30 days, I inserted it into my practice. I inserted it back into my life. And I'm a big proponent of the visioning process, and always have been.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like it was gone. It was just a little stagnant on the side of the river, as it were. Brought it back out into the main current, started visioning every day religiously, 30 days. And in those 30 days, the seeds of what are now New Thought Media Network, things that I couldn't quite put together in my conscious mind as far as how this is all going to happen. What do you mean this is? And in 2 years, what we've accomplished is, I would say, miraculous.
I would say so. So here's a question for you. You're talking about visioning. Now, I know a lot of people on this network are going to know what that is, but can you just explain a little bit of what you mean by visioning?
Absolutely. Visioning is, from my perspective, the most contemporary form of spiritual practice that's been developed from within the New Thought philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever we want to trace the origins of New Thought and religious science, divine science, the unity movement, all these we can talk the Christian Science story another day, but wherever we want to trace our roots, we've always borrowed spiritual practices. We borrowed prayer and adapted it to fit our awareness, our understanding of spiritual life. We took meditation and adapted that to fit what we took, journaling, and adapted that. Now, there's nothing wrong with any of this, because this is what religions and spiritual organizations have done
Always.
all the way along.
Mm-hmm.
And then along comes Michael Beckwith and a group of people,
I love this visioning process.
Develop this new thing called visioning. And what I've always looked at it is from the perspective that in prayer, we generally, it's a very directive form of communication.
Mm-hmm.
We tell God what we want. Here's
Absolutely.
my checklist. Here's what I don't have. Here's what I want some more of. And it's very directive. Now, that's the simplistic way of saying it, right, folks? Mm-hmm. What we're really doing is training our subconscious to understand that is our divine nature, and that is the absolute truth of our lives. And therefore, we are welcome to experience it at any moment. Yeah. It's that jokey side that is actually what holds us back. So, but in prayer, we're being directive. And in meditation, we're being receptive.
Yes.
We're sitting in the silence. We're in the stillness. We're mindful. Maybe we're taking a walk. And in all of that, we're being receptive to a divine inspiration. Well, what Beckwith and his team did is they took both of those and put them together. And said, well, let's just do both of them at the same time. So let's be directive in what it is, the information that we want and what we want to know, and then be receptive to what wants to come through, what wants to be known. And in about 20 years of practicing this now, what I have found is there is the opportunity to have that direct two-way communication and to receive answers. And
Yes.
when we've done it enough and we train ourselves enough, those answers will be transcendent of our personal human ego, and therefore we can trust that the only real source of what we're getting is the divine.
Exactly.
It can take a little while to get there, sometimes in groups, but again, in 20 years, I have learned to trust the visioning process implicitly, to obey what comes through in the visioning process.
Yes, that's important.
Because if you don't, it just doesn't go away.
Well, that's the thing, is it kind of pokes at the consciousness within you going, excuse me, excuse me, did you forget what I, it's like there's that voice there going, hello, hello. And it's pushing, pulling, dragging us sometimes to get to that new idea.
Exactly. We have to be open to the things that don't go away. So with envisioning, if you sit into a visioning session and something shows up in your life and it says, oh, go buy a red sports car. No. Hold on. We're gonna use repetition to make sure that's really the divine and not just my ego desires, not just some crazy wild thought that runs through my head in the midst of this spiritual experience. And
that's what happens for many of us, is that we're trying to decipher my ego voice from my heart, my divine voice, and and there is a way of knowing the difference very clearly.
In my visioning, one of the things I've identified now is I watch the use of my voicing. So if my journaling, and what we do in visioning, again, we ask the questions, very specific questions. They're the same questions every time. And we record our experience of what happens. And if I'm writing in the I have, I will in the first person, I'm pretty sure that's me. That's Robert saying this. Hey, here's my directive. Here's my order checklist. I want this. But when the language is you, when the notes that flow forth have revealed the sense of being spoken to, that I'm now hearing a voice outside of my own human intellect, that has to be the divine.
Absolutely.
And it has to be for good. So again, I better pay attention. And if I don't, it'll still be there the next time too.
Well, that's the thing is, and I've had a couple of interesting experiences with that voice of the divine. I remember once doing a service, and I was actually interviewing somebody during the Sunday talk rather than just doing a talk. And he was talking about something. I'd asked him a question and he was sharing it. And then all of a sudden this voice comes in and goes, so this is where you are. Are you happy with this? Is this all you imagined it would be? Like there's this whole dialogue going on inside of me. And I'm looking around the room going, is this my vision? Is this what I'd really wanted? Or is there something more? And today I'm realizing something more. But it's the visioning process is, it's so powerful. Yeah. So
that which doesn't go away.
No, and it doesn't go away. It doesn't. I remember before I moved to Toronto to start CSL. Now, this is going back 20 years ago, 22 years ago, actually. And I was in a visioning process at one of the conventions. And I'm in there, and all of a sudden I get a vision, which I don't often see pictures. So it was very odd. But it was this vast body of water, an outlet of land, and then these two big smokestacks on this land. And I'm like, oh, okay. And the idea was it's time to go to Toronto. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So when I moved to Toronto, about 5 months later, I move here and I move into a neighborhood called The Beach. And I'm walking down to the lake one day and I'm walking along the boardwalk. And what do I see directly in front of me? The exact vision that had popped up. And I had never been to that part of Toronto. I'd only been to Toronto once before for a brief visit. So it was interesting to see that. And that was a real anchor for me, going, whoa, you are in the right place. This is the right time.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It's very easy to drop into a belief that, okay, we're all predestined in destiny here. And that's not what we're teaching.
No, not at all.
Because you just as easily had the choice to look at that and go, yeah, whatever, and keep going, right? You still live at the place of choice to say, no, that's got nothing to do with what I've got this ego idea, I've got this other thing I'm doing.
Yeah.
It can be a little scary sometimes being that open to the vision.
It's very scary, actually, because it's so new.
And it's that sense of, okay, I got no clue how to do what I'm being told to do here. I've got no idea what I'm going to have to learn. How am I going to have to grow? Who I can get to help me to accomplish this crazy, wild, amazing thing that just popped into my head. And what we teach and what we know is I don't have to know the how.
That's the most important thing here, is how is not our job.
Right.
That's the universe. It's like we sit in it and go, okay, well then lead the way.
Lead the way.
What are the next steps I need to take?
And I shall serve. And folks, we're both having a lot of fun with each other, because what we know is all these questions we're asking are answered in the visioning process. Where do I need to grow? How do I need to become more of this? What needs to be, who's here to help me? How, all these questions get answered through the use of our spiritual practices. And for me, again, specifically the visioning practice.
Exactly. Now, what was your call to ministry? Like, here you are, a reverend running this incredible network, building it, expanding, creating a space for people like me to do what I love to do. What was the call to ministry, to become a reverend? What pulled you there?
The very interesting, and sometimes it feels complex, answer to that question. I was living in Salt Lake City, Utah. And had a fairly long and illustrious career as an outdoor snow professional. Also, you could say, I taught skiing, but I taught anything that went fast down hills. And I had a talent for it. And I developed that skill and that talent. And I developed, and I had reached pretty much a dead end, or what appeared to be a dead end at that point. Okay. And interestingly enough, it's right about that time that my wife comes into the picture. But my now wife comes into the picture. And we started dating, and we're looking for a spiritual community we can share, and spent the entire summer of 2020, or I'm sorry, excuse me, let's rewind that. We spent the entire summer of 2001 church shopping around Salt Lake City Valley, and we had all kinds of stuff that didn't fit and didn't work, and just nope. I used to say, it was 45 minutes of hell for 15 minutes of salvation every week, and none of it fit. So I had pretty much given up, and my wife was working with a professional personal coach, who is now also a minister in this movement. So big shout out to Reverend Barbara Novak. Nice. And she left a copy of the Science of Mind textbook on our kitchen table that one morning. Now, my wife, Laura, had a catering gig. She stayed out working. It was a Friday night. I came home from work, and there's this book that I don't recognize. Read the first 4 chapters, and I'm in tears.
Oh, I know. It's so good.
And my wife comes home, and she's like, "Oh, it's a church." And I'm like, "This is the church." So we do what we're told not to do. We go to the early service. but we love that so much we stay for the late service as well. And it was a roller coaster ride and now here comes the kicker. This was the summer into the fall of 2001. So it was our second class of foundations when the towers came down.
Oof. Boy, I remember that well.
30 some odd people fell into this room and looked at Reverend Donald Graves and said, "Go ahead, explain that. Let's hear what your fancy dancy philosophy of life and good and it's all God has to say about this." And he did such an incredible, masterful job that at that moment I was just like, wow, okay. I told my wife, we were still dating again, and I said, I want to take this class. And she said, why? I said, because if this is a cult, we'll figure it out in this class and get the hell out of here. But if it's not, and there's something real here, then this might be what we've really been looking for.
Yeah.
It took a little while to hear the true call to ministry.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't make sense if you didn't hear that part first. Because what I heard in him, and then what I continue to see in other people, Reverend Cece, who was a practitioner at the time, Reverend Molly, who was a practitioner at the time, there was a period where it was obvious there were people here committed to learning spiritual principles in order to support those around them and serve a bigger vision for the world.
Yes.
And a lot of very powerful ministers, Reverend Nicole Murgis, came into this philosophy and grew through that community out into the world.
Beautiful.
And I could drop a couple more names and probably will before we're done. Because it was just so for me, it came down to, and it was so hard to articulate, but it came down to, I could see the amazing potentiality of greatness within everyone I encountered.
Yeah.
And it felt like the only way to be a part of that and to help them to see that and bring that forward was through the avenue of ministry.
Beautiful, beautiful. It's interesting how different people come to it. And I remember my call to ministry, which happened way before I found CSL. And it was in a Nazarene church of all places. And it was, I went to endure that time because that's what it was. My mother-in-law at the time said, hey, come to church with me tonight. And I really wanted her to like me. So, that was my operating system at that point. And so she invited me to this evening service and I went. And I don't even know clearly what happened, but something big happened. And the only way I can describe it is when I walked in the room, I was in complete darkness. But when I walked out, it was like somebody flipped a switch and I could see for the first time. And what I knew was God as love. I felt this, it's like love washed over and through me and around me. And it was the most incredible experience of my life. It was fully transformative. And then it took me about a year and a half to get out of that church because I was like, they're not answering my questions, right? Like, what do you mean the rabbi's going to hell? I can't believe that. I can't believe that good people would go to hell. And so there was this struggle within me that took a little while. And then a friend introduced me to, it was actually the Center for Positive Living at the time in Calgary. And the Reverend Dr. Arlene Bump was the minister at the time. And I went in there and I just felt this overwhelming love and joy. And it was like, oh my gosh, I could get on board with this idea. So that began the journey of the Centers for Spiritual Living and coming into the understanding of what Ernest Holmes was talking about. And I'll tell you, it's been a beautiful ride since. Lots of ups and downs, lots of bumps in the road, but we get over them and through them. Yeah. So what is your great vision for this New Thought Media Network? Like, I'm so excited to be here and to be a part of it. I just want, where do you think it's going? Where are you taking it to?
So it's really difficult to answer that question without a deeper understanding of spiral dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
And so to make this easy for everybody, it's just a way of looking at humanity's evolution over time.
Mm-hmm.
And we all go through the various stages of life, if you will. And at each stage, we have a different perspective of the world.
True.
And we progress through these various stages and states of being to what eventually many might call enlightenment. It's a very loaded word. We could talk about that in another episode too. However, along that journey, there is a place where we leave behind the sense of trying to get what's best for me and mine, and move into a more world-centric perspective of how we interact in the world, how we support the vision, like a world that works for everyone, and such. In my studies through ministerial school and into the early parts of ministry, I started to be influenced by, number one, a writer named Frederick Laloux, and I started to be influenced by business writings, business books, where people were bringing the New Thought principles to life, but they didn't know they were New Thought principles, and they would bring there's one here actually that I love. You remind me of this, Bob Chapman and the Barry Wehmiller organization. If you've never heard of Barry Wehmiller, it's amazing, and the story of what Bob did there is incredible. This book, Everybody Matters: The Extraordinary Power of Caring for the People Like Family. And get back onto my story here. I started to get this vision of ministry beyond the brick and mortar, beyond the it's only Sunday nights and maybe on Wednesdays if you're feeling down and need a pick me up, but normally I'm okay. I'm going to do something else. And it was in my mind and in my heart, there is the marriage of spirituality and business that is right now happening.
Yes.
Holmes in his day was talking about the marriage when science and spirituality can walk hand in hand. Well, that's been going on for 30 or 40 years now.
Yes.
We got that part going, got that part pretty solid.
Yeah.
Now I think we're in the period where business and spirituality are learning how to walk hand in hand. And we've seen more mindfulness in large corporations. We see mindfulness rooms in airports and meditation rooms in airports and places where spirituality is infusing our environment, our lifestyles, and our entertainment in a lot of ways. And there's actually a great clip by Tia Leone from a television show where she says, or we can get about doing the hard work of creating a world that works better for everybody. I'm like, okay, so who is the science minder sitting in the writer's room of that program? Because that
exactly
somebody said you didn't come up. Your writers didn't come up with that all on their own. They came up with that. They borrowed that. So, and we borrowed it too. So
exactly. Well, that's the thing. I think that when we create a vision of inclusivity and equity and just respect and honoring of all people, of all paths, I think that's a huge step toward creating some kind of harmony in our world and the possibility of really making the world better for all. And I think that's what we're striving to do. And it is about oneness and inclusivity and coming together. And we're going to take a little commercial break here, and then we're going to come back. And this is Rev B with The Joy Show on the New Thought Media Network with my wonderful guest, Reverend Robert. Okay, how do I say it? Briz.
Yes.
Reverend Briz on the show today, the founder of this incredible network. So we'll be back in just a minute or two.
New Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience or perhaps a desire to learn. Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
And we're back with Rev Briz. I am really enjoying this conversation, and I love the ideas that you've brought forth. And one of the ones that we talked about a while ago when I was considering bringing my stuff to this network, we talked about sort of that idea of knitting together or building a bridge that would allow people to come together in new ways. But even within the New Thought movement, there's a number of organizations, and yet we're all doing the same stuff. And sort of finding a way of bridging what we perceive as differences, because I don't really think there are any, governance maybe, and just pulling together so that we can actually create a world that works for the highest and best good of every single man, woman, and child. That's my vision of, what we can do is build this bridge, this New Thought bridge.
Yeah, absolutely. In a philosophy that teaches oneness, and I use it in my prayer work all the time, there's that piece of recognizing that everyone on this planet is vital.
Yes.
To what we're creating, to what's happening. And if we believe in the power of our mind and our thoughts,
yes,
then everybody's thoughts are equally powerful and important.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason we still have war on the planet is because people still want to believe in war. And that's a much bigger topic to tackle. And yet everybody is vital to what we're creating. And I looked around the New Thought movement and I saw a lot of silos. And I have stood on stage and admitted, and I'll do it here today, I was a spiritual snob. And I had judgment about people that came from other New Thought traditions. I had judgment about people that got their education anywhere other than where I got my education, because obviously I was led to the perfect path, and everything I was doing was the absolute highest and the best in the universe. And
of course.
One of my dear friends once told my wife, he's going to be really good. You just got to let him season a while. Need some seasoning. He's going to be okay. Just stay with it. And
he'll get there. He'll get there.
He'll get there. And I got there. I got to that place, as I was saying in the last segment, where I can see a business model, a melding of the business and spirituality. And in that, we have to recognize we're set up to surround ourselves with the greatest talent we can.
Absolutely.
And part of this network is giving people permission to be their most authentic self, whether it's as a show host, whether it's producing in the background, whether it's creating words or websites or images or whatever. We give people permission to be their most creative and authentic self, and that releases the creative super genius in us.
It really does. And that's where change happens, is at that level, when we can stop judging, criticizing, or even elevating ourselves by putting somebody else down.
Right.
When we change all that, and when we remember we're all thinking in and out of the same collective consciousness. So if I'm like, oh, I hate this, I'm dragging down the collective. And if I'm living from a place of love and joy, I'm lifting it. So, we can ask ourselves, am I the lifter, or am I the one who's dragging it down? And some days I'm both. It just sort of depends.
And there comes to a place where you realize we catch a vision of something that isn't necessary. I'm not the driver anymore.
Nope.
I'm not the only guy steering the ship.
That's
and you've talked a little bit, all these various organizations in New Thought, we are actually at a point where they're all starting to talk to each other.
Yes, they are.
And there's an event happening in July in Chicago, the International New Thought Alliance's 108th Annual Congress, where all of the current leaders of all of the various New Thought organizations are coming together for a 4-day, 5-day conference. You can still go to that. You can register for that. We're going to be there. It's going to be an amazing. We got a whole bunch of people going, actually. And
that's INTA or
INTA, yes.
INTA.
I'll grab us a link here that that we can share with everybody. And it's 107th. I'm sorry, and it's called One Mind as Many, and it's going to be an amazing collaboration opportunity for New Thought leaders to come together and say, okay, how do we collectively, as one, address the big issues of our day and our time, that which we have been called here to support and to heal it and to find solutions to. The really cool part about this is then we get to do it in Chicago this year for this conference. And then in August of next year, there's an event called the Parliament of the World Religions. And there's already a team of people working to bring that same lineup, that same concept to a global audience and say, hey, here's what we've learned in the last year about organizational oneness, transcending old denominational beliefs that aren't true.
Well, and it's interesting. I attended the Parliament of World Religions when it was held here in Toronto in 2018, and it was wonderful to see the diverse collection of people and the harmony in which we all sat. Like there wasn't division. There was an opportunity of, we're here to look at our world and the issues that face it. And as spiritual beings, how do we begin to address some of that? And I know for me, as I look at things like racism, when I look at the violence that is going on around the world, it's like this is calling my attention in a really big way. I watched a TV program, a movie the other day called Just Mercy, and I just wept through the entire thing. It was such an unjust way of treating Black men, most specifically, that it just broke my heart. And I'm like, how is it that we as human beings can choose to harm another without any regret? It's like, it would, I'm baffled by it. And when I look at what we teach, that there is only one, and that we are all live, move, or have our being in that one, what I know is that racist attitude, well, that's a part of me. It's in me because there's only one thing going on. And so if I want to heal that, then what I must do is heal here. This is where my work must be done, is within myself, to lift my consciousness, to expand, to explore my depths. Where am I acting in a way of causing separation? And I remember how I used to judge, like, well, the Nazarene Church, they're doing this, but CSL is doing this. Aren't we great? But the reality is it's all great.
Yeah.
Wherever we find our spiritual food, yes, that's a lifter.
We speak about that universal knowledge that can be known at any time and in any place. And so why is it we think that might not happen in somebody that practices Judaism?
Yeah.
Or calls them a Sikh, or calls themselves by any tradition.
Yeah.
We have to be willing to see that potentiality, that beauty, that greatness, that seed of the divine in everyone we meet.
Yes.
And it becomes tough in spiritual communities where there may be varying political beliefs. It becomes tough in our everyday lives where we obviously see political differences in our daily lives. And how do we, I was reminded earlier in this conversation, the sense of peace is not the absence of chaos and confusion and question. And it is being able to stay centered in the truth of the divine in the midst of all of that.
Yeah. Which is exactly what called you into that first Church of Religious Science.
Yep.
Was his way of articulating the two towers.
Yep.
And being able to, put that into a context that was a healing context, as opposed to an explosive, frustrated, angry rant about those people, whoever those people might be.
Yep.
I love how we go, well, those people do this or this person does it. And I'm like, well, who are those people? There is within us a consciousness, and we're creating and moving forward, or we're not. And whatever we're bringing to the table is the only thing we can take from it as well, which is a really important piece of the puzzle. But that's what brought you into it, was that world story that somehow landed with an idea of possibility and consciousness creating something different and new and better. And we can do that. We have the ability to do that.
Oftentimes, it isn't. I've been in this movement about 20 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I've been joking for 10 years that I'm going to be an overnight success in 20 years. and that's an older joke that predates us, right? Somebody's an overnight success. Yeah, after 20 or 30 years of hard work, the world
will be an overnight success. Yeah.
And that sets us up for a belief that we are, as humans, are trying to catch up to what is ours, to our own success. I actually think it's the other way around.
I agree.
When we use the visioning process, I can actually look back and see glimpses of where New Thought Media Network was showing up 15, 10, 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But it couldn't have happened the way it does now.
Exactly.
The technology wasn't there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I was envisioning a little radio station in a community, in a strip mall, in a community where people could come visit and this and that. And other people were like, yeah, this, that. It could not have happened the way it did.
Yeah.
Until 2020. The technology, StreamYard, was barely new at that time.
Yeah.
The technology. So it's not that we're trying to catch up with our success. It's not that we're trying to prove our success. It's a process of allowing our success to be revealed and being able to recognize it when the world, the technology, the humanness catches up with the divine vision. The vision is always going to precede the need.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the part to keep in mind, because we tend to get in a bit of a rush. We want everything yesterday, right? I keep telling my students that life is a journey without a destination.
Yes.
And so the only point of it is to be present now. That's it.
And I used to have a T-shirt with that.
I'm going to get it tattooed on my wrist as a bracelet.
I had a T-shirt. The journey is the destination.
The journey is the destination. Yeah. It's a powerful idea, especially, oftentimes when people are coming into this New Thought movement, they're coming in going, oh, it's a magic fix. I'll just understand the law of attraction and that's it. Life will be great. And
here's my red sports car.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting idea. It doesn't actually work that way, but But that's sometimes, and I think that's what causes some frustration for new people coming in. If they don't understand consciousness and they're coming in and hearing, oh, I can do treatment and heal this or that, it creates a lot of dismay, because we have to articulate that consciousness is the creative force of the universe, and that if we want to see any change in our life, we can't do it by changing the external. The only place we can make change is right here. Yep. Within our own self. Yep. Yeah, it's
the story that I love to use is Mother Teresa reportedly was invited to an anti-war march, and her response was, no, if you have a peace rally, invite me to that.
Exactly.
And we see right now in society, and you're going to see a whole bunch this summer, I can tell you that more and more people marching in the streets.
Yes.
And I absolutely agree with you, Rev B. It's all in the consciousness that we bring to those events and those experiences. It's not that we're going to stop marching in the street, but it means that I'm going to march in the street with a sign that's positive, that's casting a vision towards what we do want, rather than F this guy or that guy or whoever. And it's being able to bring our spirituality, our deep knowing of the truth, to the events of our day. So we change our consciousness, and that leads us to inspired action. I agree. There's a lot of people that get lost upon the journey because they didn't get the red sports car, because I've been telling the universe I need a man for this long, and all I keep getting are these idiot guys,
There's no good men left.
Right. And so I've looked at it from a perspective of maturity.
Yeah.
When we grow as human beings, we grow through stages of maturity, and the same thing happens when we find spiritual community.
Absolutely.
When I first came through the door, I never imagined being a minister. And then I got into those teenage years, and I thought I was ready to be a minister right now, damn it. And okay, here
you had all the answers.
Exactly. I was that guy in school going, put me in, coach. I'm ready to lead. I'm ready to lead. And, oh, how little I really knew. And in the 10 years since then, I've seasoned. I've been able to discern the call, be able to discern where people are hurting and where people want to be challenged.
Yes.
There used to be a statement that got thrown around, right? Our job as a minister is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. No. That
was around for a long time.
It's an immature understanding of this philosophy and how it works.
Yeah.
And I'm here to challenge and support those that are afflicted, and yes, comfort them. But I'm not here to afflict you if you've fallen into the trap of stagnation or comfort or feeling like you've done it all. I'm here to continue to challenge you as well into your greatness. And if your greatness has gotten waylaid or arrested for some reason, if you have forgotten, that's not me to come and smack you over the head and tell you you're wrong.
No.
So as we spend time in the philosophy, we mature into a deeper understanding. Personal opinion, a lot of people get rushed through to try to reach a destination within organizations and through an educational system, and people get rushed through and corners are cut. And I could tell you stories about this for decades, but where and that doesn't serve our students. That doesn't serve the people that are still need the time to mature into a wealth of demonstration, a deep collection of stories of where they've made this work, and where I've stubbed my toe and fallen on my face and publicly said the wrong thing, and therefore being willing to be open to lessons and new understanding and new education. I know you. I'm preaching to the choir. So
That's okay. That's okay, because people listening in are going to enjoy hearing that really it is a journey. I'm reading a book right now called The Art of Abundance by Dr. Dennis Jones,
Yep.
and it's really it's such a great example of how to put into practice the ideas of consciousness and how to create them. I'm quite enjoying it. And
Yeah.
it's interesting that as we move along, what we are doing is striving to find answers, but those answers aren't out here. They're right here. We already know. One of my favorite questions, all my students hate it, is they'll say, well, I don't know. And I'll go, well, if you knew what the answer was, what would it be?
Right.
And like they look at me like, and then they stop because the answer's there and it pops right up as a result of that question.
Yeah.
I kind of chuckle and go, like I said, you knew what the answer was. And I talk to people how we lie to ourselves because we're always telling ourselves, well, I don't know. Well, that's a flat out lie. We do know. We have the ability to know, but it does require us to spend some time in our heart space. And then I think for all of the challenges in the world today, that love is the answer. That if I can just love you enough, maybe you will love yourself enough. You know, Ricky Byers wrote the song, I love myself so much that I can love you so much. And I love that message because it is such a true statement of how we heal our world. We don't heal it by beating each other up, berating each other, judging, criticizing. We heal it by creating a sacred space where people can feel safe and feel loved and challenged to grow and be and expand, right? But that's the journey as ministers that we're on, is to create that space for people to find their authentic voice and feel safe enough to actually express it.
That the environment. It's all about it's about creating that environment. And that's why I love that you're here on New Thought Media Network, because you're shaping the environment of what we will be.
Yes.
Not just today and tomorrow and next year, but what this network will be 20, 30, 50, 100 years from now, after we've both moved into the next dimensions of living this network's going to be going on.
Exactly.
And the consciousness we bring to it today shapes generations down the line. And if we can demonstrate that here in this small environment, in this small container, then it has to grow and it has to expand and it has to flourish. And I believe it's the divine ideal. We are a part of modeling the divine ideal of beloved community at a global level in a planetary way.
Yeah. And I think when we remember that each one of us is kind of a microcosm of the macrocosm, the universal oneness, that as we acknowledge our responsibility in that, we start to live in a way that is more honoring. So I've caught myself recently getting a little irritated first thing in the morning. And this morning I went, enough, you got to stop that. Consciousness is creating, like my pets wake me up at 5 a.m. They're all seniors, right? Well, so am I, but you know, they're noisier. They wake me up in the morning, barking, meowing, get out of bed, come feed me. And I'm like, I just want a couple of minutes with, let me wake up and, get into the day before all these demands are placed. But the truth is, I have these beautiful pets who are so loving and glorious, who only give love. That's all they know. Even the cats. And somehow I'm getting annoyed because they wake me up at 5 o'clock. The truth is, that's ridiculous. So this morning I'm giving myself a little lesson going, you know what? You love them and they love you. So just feed them, let them outside for a minute, and then you'll have your peace and change your story. My husband laughs at me like, honey, Why are you upset with the animals? It's too early. We all have our little missteps sometimes, and just to honor our humanity, I think is a big part of this journey. That if I can just honor where I am at any given moment, forgive myself for the missteps that I make, and then from there move forward with as much love and compassion as I can. And that I think is the journey. That if we show up, I love Don Miguel Ruiz and his four agreements, or now the fifth agreement, in that he gives these very simple things, because this teaching is simple. It's so simple. Hardest thing we probably ever do, but very simple. Because we got to rewire this consciousness of ours that believes in, I don't know, separation and them and us. And that's the part that I'm really seeking to change, is to really do my very best to live in that state of oneness, where each person I meet, whether it's a homeless person on the street, or it's somebody of a different religion who disagrees with what I'm saying, or whatever, that somehow I come to a place where I can just accept their opinion for what it is, and release my own sense of separation or whatever, to really build that connection.
It's you strike on something incredibly, a number of things that are incredibly important there from my perspective. We have to be real. We have to be our true, authentic selves. And I will tell you, every time I hear the news about another shooting, I get PO'd to the top of the world and back. And it's not always the most pleasant picture when I get on a rant about guns, because my thoughts have evolved. My perspective evolves every time there is an experience, every time I have to deal with that. And that's a place where I can heal my consciousness.
It is.
And I'm not going to do the spiritual bypass of saying, well, I'm above that. And I'm not going to do the spiritual bypass of saying, oh, well, we should pray for that person because they're hurting too. And okay, yeah, that's true. The gunman is hurting, but not as much as the people he shot. So we'll deal with that later. Let's deal with this now. But we have to be willing to step into that state of saying, I don't love the action.
Right.
But if I start to hate the actor, then I lose myself.
Yeah, I become like them. And that's where I want to live.
State of peace, my center, my ability to bring myself back to center and say, okay, calm down. You vented enough now. It's time for the show. Go out there and be true. And we live in these times where moment by moment we get to demonstrate what we believe and get to see the demonstration of the reciprocal demonstration of what we believe moment by moment.
Exactly. It's powerful. It is powerful.
It is.
Oh, I am so grateful you were on the show today. What a delight. I'm sure people, when they watch this, are going to be so excited. It is being pre-recorded, so I'll just let people know that. And but it's going to air and it's going to be fabulous. I just know it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And this is Rev B and the Joy Show, which is an acronym for just one you. There's only one of you. Unrepeatable, beautiful, perfect, whole and complete, right where you are right now, no matter what is going on. I love you. God bless you. Have a most miraculous life experience and be the change you want to see in the world. Bye for now. See you next week.
Hey, everybody.